So, where do I need to look in this direction here?
It's fine.
They're going to cut the beginning and the end.
Sure, but it's fine. I mean, you
Okay.
never know where I'm looking on these things, but
Yeah. Okay, hello. It's my great pleasure to welcome Emma Roberts today. Emma is one of the original 29 founding masters who trained with Gary Craig in the 90s in the States. She's run the EFT Centre in London for over 20 years, I believe, together with her colleague Sue Beer, and they have literally trained hundreds of EFT practitioners. So welcome, Emma. I'm so glad you could join me today.
thank you very much for the invite. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah. Emma, you did work with hundreds, if not 1,000 of cancer patients and other people with serious disease over 20 years of EFT practice.
Yeah.
And you ended up being inspired to write a book, Even Though I Have Cancer, which is a great companion for practitioners and patients alike. So tell me a little bit about how did you get into working with cancer patients and what inspired you then to write the book?
Well, I was working for a private GP, the American's general practitioner surgery in London. And I was getting sent a few cancer patients there who were kind of just, go and tap and it'll calm you down. So that was the starting point. And then I started to work at Breast Cancer Haven in London again, where you took over from Sue and I. I was originally doing individual sessions and then running groups there regularly for, gosh, must have been 15 years or more, I don't know. And then handed it over to you. Great. And the reason behind the book was that at the Haven, I was given, I think it was a maximum of 4 sessions at the time to work with people, which really wasn't enough. And I thought, well, there's so many areas that need to be covered, and these people usually couldn't afford to come and do individual sessions, or or couldn't travel, or whatever it was. So there's so much they can do for themselves to support themselves. So I actually wrote the book originally for cancer sufferers to sort of cherry pick bits out of it that kind of resonated with them and use the tapping for themselves. It ended up being a guide for practitioners as well, although that wasn't the initial intention at all, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I always found it's a great companion for your practical work because it covers so many aspects that might come up with cancer. Very, very useful. Yeah, I mean, working with cancer, I'm just wondering what your opinion is. You just mentioned that at a breast cancer charity at the time you get 4 sessions, and so I guess that there will be time to do firefighting mostly. If you had more time, how would you approach a session with a cancer patient? Would you sort of also go into looking for traumatic past experiences, or?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I have a private practice as well, where I see people for much longer periods of time, often over years. Obviously not everybody, some don't have such a good outcome. My first point is that EFT doesn't cure cancer. We can't say that. But I do think it's a really important part of a multidimensional approach, which obviously includes the medical model, but also nutrition, lifestyle, all these things where EFT can support. But I think you always start where your client's at. Firefight, as you just put it, absolutely. And you teach them the skills and the tools for kind of pain management, symptom management, that sort of thing. And then gradually working backwards through diagnosis, which I think is very important, all the way back to kind of childhood trauma, to do, I quite often, if people have got the energy, I like to work on their personal peace procedures, a list of those kind of traumatic memories that are still getting a response from them in the here and now. What I don't want to be is diagnostic. I don't want to go, oh, well, you've got this cancer, so that must come from this sort of event, because I like to do the detective work myself. Because otherwise I think you might miss things, in my opinion. So that's just how I work, and other people work differently. But I do think it's important to just really listen to your client and follow where they're going and ask the right question at the right time to lead them to where they need to be. But that's not where I need them to be, it's where they need to be.
Exactly. Am I right when I say, if I understand you that way, that cleaning out old stuff, traumatic experiences, childhood, will improve or support the emotional well-being, the peace, so to speak, of the person, and therefore also be helpful to healing, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's helpful to healing. In my experiences, it certainly helps create peace.
Yeah.
You need to be careful, obviously. Different people have different amounts of energy available, so you pace it accordingly. But I think for all of us, actually, whether we're suffering from some form of serious disease or not, I think clearing out your emotional history is absolutely vital for well-being and health. I really, really do. I'm sort of passionate about that. So
absolutely.
by trainings, you get really bored about, well, you need to do your own work. But I do think it's vital. And I think it's vital for the practitioner as well, working in this field, because otherwise it's incredibly triggering, potentially.
While you were working at the Breast Cancer Haven, and just to make sure this has come across, this was a support charity for breast cancer patients. It doesn't exist anymore, sadly. While you were there as a practitioner, you were involved in a research study about, or maybe you can say that better. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did and what the outcomes of this study were?
I can, if you can give the title, because I can never remember the title.
The title, I need to read that. EFT to reduce the side effects associated with tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors in women with breast cancer, a service evaluation.
Thank you, because I can never get those words right. In short, basically, it was a pre-pilot study into looking at the effect of EFT over a period of 12 weeks for mood, pain, fatigue, hot flushes, menopausal symptoms, actually and sleep. What we did was Sue and I did 3 groups weekly, once a week for 3 hours, where we taught the women how to tap, obviously. We didn't really bother with the history too much, but it was very much a hands-on practical approach. We do demos and things, but the idea was to teach them enough that they could take it away and apply it to these particular symptoms. And it was statistically significant. Unfortunately, that we couldn't get funding to take it any further, but it was quite a big group. It was for the 41 people, and we had a very low dropout rate. So, you know, it was quite, at the time, it was really exciting. Just the funding wasn't there, which was a bit sad.
So the results were really that it looks like that EFT is a very effective self-support tool, mainly for.
Absolutely, and that's where I think the joy of EFT comes. Actually, it's not about being committed to having hours and hours of therapy sessions. It's actually having a tool that people can take with them into hospital, into MRI scans. You know, vividly imagining. You know that it's great to go to therapy to help the therapist to help you kind of get underneath into the deeper root causes, but actually having something literally at your fingertips that you can use to calm the nervous system in the moment when you haven't got somebody else with you, it's massively empowering. But it's a cancer diagnosis is very disempowering.
Yes.
So if you've got something that you can take to manage everything, because your whole world changes from that moment.
Sort of the first word I often hear when I work with someone with cancer is overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed by not just the diagnosis, but all the decisions that need to be made then, and all the information that comes in. And
when they're traumatized, none of us make clear decisions in trauma. So it's, you know, so it's I mean, it's huge. It's obviously it's a life-changing diagnosis, and if you've got anything that will help you with that, and it's great. And EFT, I think, is the best tool we've got. I mean, you know, I'm always looking out for the next best thing, but actually in 23 years or whatever it is, I haven't found it, you know.
Could you say something about when you look at different things, what makes EFT so special? Is it that ability to use it yourself?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And also there's something about the touch, whether it's self-touch or a therapist and practitioner working on you. It's a very soothing process. It's got a kind of hypnotic rhythm to it. I mean, I think there's so many different elements that go into it. It's really easy to learn package. I mean, I might not teach the full basic recipe or that sort of stuff to people. I'll just teach things that I think they're going to use. Keep it simple, strip it down. This is how we use it. And people take it because, of course, that population are desperate for something. So they're really good tappers on the whole, really good tappers.
Yeah.
You know, and I think also combining it with a bit of visualization can be useful too.
Absolutely. Yeah. What advice would you give, let's say, a fairly young, recent practitioners who are thinking of working more with cancer? Because I found, in a way, quite often people ask me because they have sort of a bit of a hesitation to go there.
And, you know, caution isn't a bad thing, actually. But as long as it doesn't stop you going there, because there's a very definite need for people to work in this environment. From, you know, and we've taken it into hospices and trained staff in hospices, you know, to work with people in hospital, all that sort of thing as well. So I guess my advice, I don't like giving advice, but if I was going to give advice, would be to make sure you've got good supervision, or mentoring as it's now called, lined up, so you've got a support system in place. Because when you start, you know, people will tell you things that they can't tell anybody else. Yeah. And you've got to be able to hold that space for them without, you know, getting upset yourself, you know, because you hear some horrible stories, and you know, that's the point of mentoring, supervision. Part of it is to share that and go through it. But I know you run your mentoring groups, so I mean, there's that sort of thing for practitioners. I think it's very important. Otherwise, just go for it. You know, because going for it gives you actually the experience in the end, isn't it? You can't get it from reading, even my book. You can't get it from reading books. You've got to actually get in there and do the work. Yeah. And if you do that with a sense of caution and an awareness, you'll be fine. Great. Okay. That is a beautiful way to end it, I think. Thank you so much, Emma, for your time. Pleasure to see you. My pleasure. Bye. Thank you. Good luck with the research symposium. Thank you. Bye. So